Hi, I'm Dr. Denise Rollins, Executive Director of the Whole Heart Grief and Life Resource Center. Today, I had the pleasure of interviewing Jazzmine, one of our Whole Heart coaches. And as she talks about spirituality and her brokenness around that, she gives a great insight into some of the things that we don't talk about, but that we need to. As Jazzmine tells her story and answers the questions for the weights, walls, and walkways exercises, begin to apply her situation or the questions to yourself and see where it leads you. I look forward to talking to you about it after the interview. All right, so I'm Dr. Denise Rollins of the Whole Heart Grief and Life Resource Center, and I have been doing this series of incredible conversations with everyday people. I think we learn so much when we talk to each other and get to know each other. And so today I get to talk to Jazzmine, who is one of our coaches and a very amazing person. Every time I talk to you, Jazzmine, even if we're just talking about something routine, I walk away feeling better about myself.
Oh,
so
well,
that's
thank you.
a gift. So Jazzmine, today what I want to do is walk you through a conversation, and we'll talk about an area of your brokenness. And as we do that, I'm going to introduce one of the Whole Heart activities called weights, walls, and walkways. And so we'll talk about that in just a second. But I think that I really believe that we all carry some brokenness with us. No matter how accomplished, successful, beautiful we are, there's still that little 10 or 8-year-old inside of us who still battles with messages they may have gotten a long time ago. Even if we're aware of it and have to coach ourselves through it, we have brokenness. And I'm just curious, are there any areas for you of brokenness that you're aware of?
I don't know how much time we have.
Just one or two.
Just one. I would probably say my strongest that's currently in repair is my spirituality. And and that's huge for me, growing up in church. And not just growing up in church, but having a relationship with God since I was like 15. And, so my relationship with God is like high up there in terms of priority. But it's been a rocky road, trying to restore my relationship with him after the passing of my son. So.
Wow. Jazzmine, I'm amazed by that because from a cultural standpoint, a lot of times we won't admit that spirituality is an area of brokenness for us. And so I'm curious, how does that brokenness show up for you?
Oh man, it shows up in, I feel like there was a lostness in even knowing how to pray. Because I'm, was trained to be so strong in how to pray and rebuking and declaring and, all that when my son passed away, I had no words. I had no words, and I didn't feel like that was okay to not have any words. I felt like, when you pray, you're supposed to have things to say, but not only am I supposed to have things to say, I'm supposed to be very grateful somehow and still see silver lining. And that wasn't happening. And then when I would walk into church, feeling really numb in a church setting, people using, just Christian platitudes, they would just kind of ping off me. It wasn't reaching my heart. And that bothered me because I wasn't connecting to God the way I was accustomed to connecting to God. So it really felt like something was wrong with me.
And my heart connects with yours in the loss of a child. Because I've experienced that too. So I'm always just sad that you had to experience that. So Jazzmine, can you describe the Jazzmine that existed spiritually, maybe the week before your son passed away, and then the Jazzmine who existed spiritually maybe 2 weeks after he passed away?
I could tell you I could tell you the morning of, I
Wow.
was gassed up about, I felt like God was about to do something amazing. I had devotion with the kids, and we were already in the process of moving. So we had boxes packed. I was in the process of ramping up my coaching practice. So I was, had, what was that? I was taking a class at the time. And so things were just looking like, we're on the hunt for this new church. So everything felt really exciting. So I actually called my husband to tell him, like, you know what? God is going to do something amazing, because I feel a breakthrough coming in this area, this area, this area, this area. And not knowing a few hours later what I would discover with my son, and his condition. So that morning I was gassed up about life. And
Mm-hmm.
then thereafter feeling extremely lost. Extremely lost. And the picture I kept getting after his funeral was, I just felt like there was a path, and then it came to this dead end where there was nothing but trees, shrubs, forest, and all this uncharted territory. No more path, no more road, and nothing for me to pursue or seek after. So I don't know what to do now. And then would I have cared, about more a business or about a house or it nothing. So it's like, well, what do I do now that nothing feels like it even matters?
Mm-hmm. Had you
Um,
ever been at that low of a point spiritually?
never that
Really?
I could. I think maybe the thing that I got closest to it was, was when I'd fallen into some sin when I was a teenager after giving my life to Christ. I was like, oh crap, I'm supposed to be a superwoman after getting baptized. I'm supposed to not have these thoughts. Where did these come from? And so not being able to live to the standard of, I guess, holiness and righteousness, that made me feel pretty low. But nothing as devastating to my walk as much as this. But even in the middle of that, like God still spoke, and that's something that has anchored me, because it sure enough wasn't coming from my end. Yep. In the middle of that, I feel like, and my husband said it perfectly at one point. He said, I feel like right now God is holding on tighter than me than I'm holding on to him.
Wow.
And that's what it really felt like. It felt like he had a tighter grip on me than I had on him. And so I appreciate that about God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Having met you many, many years ago, way before this changed your life, I would imagine that your spirituality was what connected you to a lot of people. Would that be correct?
Absolutely. And especially being involved in church communities, being a leader in a lot of those communities, being a youth director for about 10 years, being a young adult leader, being on prayer ministries. I mean, church is the thing. It's the thing that you find your hands to do something. And that's the community of people that I was accustomed to serving. And so that was a big part of my identity as well.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
So one part of this exercise is, how does that brokenness now become this wall that separates you from other people? Because spirituality used to connect you.
Huge. Yeah.
Now, are there ways that it separated you from people?
That's an excellent question. That's an excellent question. And I have made those observations within myself. So it's interesting that you asked that, because it's like it's pulling it out to where it can be a conversation. Because I don't think I've ever expressed it to anybody, but it definitely feels like I have disconnected because my belief has shifted.
Mm-hmm.
My belief about what prayer is and should be has changed drastically. Whereas before I felt like prayer is supposed to grant me my wishes. It's supposed to get me what I want. Now, at least in this phase right now, I'm like, no, prayer is about connection. But in some circles that doesn't fly. Some circles like, no, you need to, it's this. And so I think that because the way I view prayer, even the way that I pray, people want me to sound more aggressive in my prayer, and I'm not. I'm like, I'm here to connect with God. That, or even prophecy. hearing
Mm-hmm.
from God prophetically. Again, before I felt like prophecy in my mind, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I see it now. In my mind, God was supposed to tell me the future so I could avoid pain. He was supposed to help me to predict what was going to happen next so that I could avoid pain at all costs.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's been a huge shift. Like, I'm not trying to hear God to predict my next steps, because if that's what it was for, then a lot of us are short.
Mm-hmm.
A lot
Absolutely.
of us are short. If we think that, for me to hear a prophetic word is for my gain, ultimately, I think there's some unhealthy aspects to the relationship with God, if you think that that's what it is. So, and by me being sad somehow in the Christian community, sometimes is not really acceptable. Because
Mm-hmm.
you're supposed to be strong, you're supposed to be quoting scriptures, you're supposed to be chanting certain things, you're supposed to be, and like, nah, I'm having a bad day right now. I'm kind of wanting to curse the world a little bit, um, you know, and it's hard to find. Not saying it doesn't exist, but it's difficult to find other believers who can rock with you in those dark spaces and still be okay. So it has put some distance between me and the community a little bit. Um, and I'm not saying let me be in a dark place. I'm saying empathize with me before jumping to the conclusion that I might be lacking in faith, or I'm not praying enough, or I'm not something enough. Because you already struggle with that as a believer anyway, that somehow you're not enough. I don't
Mm-hmm.
need to hear more of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do think that there's been, but at the same time, I I have found some really amazing relationships and connections with, I feel like, people who are real and genuine, that they know that there are going to be these dips in life, but they're okay with those dips, and it has not made them lose hope or trust in God. So I feel like I've discovered some really good gems um, in terms of friendships.
I love that. So part of the exercise is how does it create a wall? Also, the second part is how does that brokenness sometimes become a weapon? And it sometimes we use it against people. I know when my father passed, and I'd been praying fervently, like you did, trying to change the situation.
Yeah.
And then when he died, and then my son got really sick, I took the word and beat the heck out of God with it, because
Mm-hmm.
I used it as a weapon. Like, how dare you? Because I was so angry. Are there any ways that you've ever used that brokenness spiritually as this weapon
Mm.
against other people or even yourself, beating
Mm-hmm.
yourself?
Denise, you be asking some good questions, girl. Yeah. I was not expecting this. I was not. This is good. I feel like I'm in a session right now. So I am, but definitely against myself.
Wow. Tell me more.
Hugely. That was my biggest issue. My biggest issue wasn't being angry at God,
Mm-hmm.
as some might suspect, or as even some would give me permission to be. That weapon was slicing me apart,
Wow.
because I felt like I thought I prayed enough. And I kept literally, just if I had prayed enough, David would be here. If I would have, and it kept going really back to prayer. Somehow I missed God. Somehow I didn't see something. Somehow, and so it didn't help when I got a call and someone else took that weapon that I was already using against myself and used it on me as well. I was like, I can't take too much of this, where they saw it as a punishment, or a form of God correcting me for not having done God's will somehow. Now, I never went to that extreme. I never felt like it was God's punishment. But I certainly did feel as though I missed something in God, and that it hurt because I felt like I tried so carefully to hear God. I tried so carefully to, if I heard him, to be obedient to what I was, sensing or something like that. And so to feel like I missed it in a huge way was like, you know, then it was like, God, you left me out here defenseless. We got an enemy. He's smarter than I am, So then I'm questioning everything I'd ever been taught about Satan and my power and my authority. I'm like, well, what authority do I have if this still happened?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's just hard to wrap your mind around certain teachings when your experience is otherwise.
Mm-hmm. So what is it that helped to pull you out of that?
I think multiple things.
Mm-hmm.
The very first being in the scripture, it resonates with me even now. But Hebrews 4:15 says that we serve a God, like Christ came so that he could know our suffering. So he's not what's the word it uses? Basically, he's not ignorant to the things that we go through. He knows exactly what we go through. So I felt like even if all the churches and the friends that I had in those churches couldn't rock with me, I felt like Christ was right with me in that ditch. And that gave me a great sense of comfort. Like, okay, it don't matter what nobody else is saying or feeling right now. He said he came and he knows what this feels like. He knows what grief feels like. He knows it. That gave me a great sense of feeling like not alone. And then he proved it through a dream that he had given me. And I literally heard his voice say, Jazzmine, you're okay.
Wow.
And just those 3 words, just my name and you're okay. And every once in a while I'll be freaking out around here or whatever, or things going in. Jazzmine, you're okay.
Wow.
And it's just amazing to me what like a simple phrase from him, will do. And I feel like that was kind of like baseline survival, like just knowing that I'm okay. And then everything else kind of, like I said, the multiplicity of other things, friends, text messages from people, conversations with different pastors, things like that, all accumulated to really helping me.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I heard a sermon one time that said we just are not as Christians well acquainted with suffering. Mm-hmm. And because of that, we just have it so wrong. What's interesting to me is you said that you felt like in that place, in that pit, that God was with you mm-hmm. and was there and understood your suffering. I think that now that you have experienced that kind of suffering, although I still wish you didn't have to go through it,
yeah,
it then allows you to connect with people in a way that you may not have connected before.
Absolutely.
So the last part of the exercise is just being curious about how that brokenness you've experienced now becomes a walkway that you connect with people that you didn't connect with before. Tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. At the beginning of this, I was like, I'm never coaching again. Never. Mm-hmm. And a really big reason for that was I was already questioning whether I should be doing this or not before he passed away. But then the day that he passed, I was on the phone on a coaching call. Mm-hmm. And there's a term for that where, and I can't remember it at the moment. I've learned so many different things in the process of this. But there's a term where you think, okay, I was cooking while this was happening and now it gels together, And so for my mind, it gelled together. Like I'm never coaching again because if I was not on that call, kind of a thing. And I even talked to, cause I have a counselor that we've been seeing since David's passing. And I'd even, talked to him about it. I said, sometimes I wonder if I should be doing this. And I said, but my sessions are different. And he said, Jazzmine, I wonder, he said, would you say that they're deeper and richer? And I was like, that's what it is. They're deeper and they're richer. And I listen differently. I empathize differently. It definitely has shifted to where to some degree, and I'm gonna be vulnerable, be honest. When I was coaching before, I felt like it was more of me. I want to be this coach. I want to have the answers. I want to be seen as someone who has the answers. I want to be the guru. I want to be the go-to. Mm-hmm. And this shift took place where it's like, I don't even care about me in this moment. It's definitely about the client. It's definitely about their pain, their struggle, or not even just their pain, their struggle. Sometimes it's just even about their dreams. because sometimes people need hope. So I listen differently. I engage differently. I don't have to have a word to say. Like I can just kind of relax and, be in that. So I definitely feel like it's affected my, be it in coaching or even just one-on-one, just all around different listener for sure.
But isn't that amazing that out of something so horrible, then you really become a different kind of servant? I remember in grad school, one of the professors said that Christ is found in the valley of the shadow of death. It is in that deep place that you thought you knew him before, but now you really know him. And it's so amazing that becomes an even wider walkway, if you will.
Yes,
for you
absolutely.
to affect people.
Absolutely. I want to add something to that. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Just to what you're saying, I had this picture of me being in this dark cave, and I'm in the dark cave, and Jesus is kind of sitting across from me. Not kind of. He's sitting across from me, and he's leaned in on his knees, and he's just looking at me, and just this intense, like, okay, he's with me in this cave. And he looks at me, and again, this is all just something in my quiet time I'm picturing. And he says, you can't stay here, right? And let me add this to the picture. I had a cup of coffee and a blanket over my legs. Like, I'm getting comfortable in this cave. I'm comfortable in this dark place and in this isolation, because even though I might be around people, you can still be emotionally isolated. So I'm in this place, and he just leans in and he says, you can't stay here, right? And I'm like, but I want to, because I mean, as odd as it is, you can almost find comfort sometimes in your darkness. And God's like, you can't stay here. You can't stay here. And so I'm like, okay, how do we get out? And I'm watching this scene kind of at the mouth of the cave. And instead of taking me out of the mouth of the cave, we go in to the deeper darkness. And I'm like, wait a minute, I thought we was going out the front door. Where we going? And it was like he had to walk me back through the darkness. He said, we're going to go out the way we came. And I think in going out the way that we came, it's almost like a museum where you see things you didn't see before in the darkness. And he's teaching me in the process of that. We're going to explore some of this darkness. It's not just, I'm going to take you out. And I think a lot of us, and I understand why, we want to rush out of the darkness. We want to rush out of the cave because it is uncomfortable. You hate being there. I hate it when the pain sets in, all of that. But there's something about, if you were to look at it from as if you were observing it. And I think it was C.S. Lewis who wrote A Grief Observed.
He did.
And there's something about observing it that you can glean more from it. And then you are closer to Christ. You're more, and I feel like I'm more spiritual in that way, in exploring the darkness, than I am in trying to hurry up and get out and be churchy Jazzmine again, honestly. I feel like I can live the truth better by walking with him through the darkness than just trying to quote scriptures and get back to where I once was, which was, in all honesty, was unhealthy in a lot of ways, and for my relationship with God.
I think that is a powerful and profound point. And I think if I'm going to speak to coaching for a minute, that's what I love about coaching, that we are willing to walk beside someone. We're not Jesus, but we stand beside someone and walk them through that darkness, allowing them to see things that they didn't see before, so that when they come out of it, they're stronger than they were before. And it's their choice and their work. Yeah.
I think too, because when you do walk through it and you observe, you're able to help others to make those observations. And I think when they're seeing it, they're like, oh, but all I'm doing is what somebody else did for me.
Absolutely. So Jazzmine, I love talking to you as always. I just ask, is there any, for that person, because I talk to people and you talk to people all the time who are stuck in that valley and they can't see their way out. Is there any advice you would give as somebody who now understands how deep that valley can be?
Yeah, absolutely. I would probably say, I wish I could put numbers to this, but I don't know what I'm going to say. I would like to bullet it. But I would probably say the first thing is that your pain is okay. Um, because we don't want to feel it. We want to avoid it, but your pain is okay. But take that pain and continue to take it to God.
Mhm.
He's not expecting you to have it together. And a lot of it is the structure of who God is in our mind that we think he is. We think he wants us to perform well. And it's not it at all. But as if he were a good father, which he says he is, as if he were a good father, a good loving father, the same way a good loving father wouldn't punish their kids for having pain. God's not going to punish you for having pain.
Mhm.
And so bring your pain to him. But secondly, I would say, allow yourself to get quiet. Get quiet. And our imaginations are amazing, but we are used to using our imaginations only for, negative things. We imagine arguments playing out. We imagine worst case scenarios. But imagine if God were to come to you in that moment when you're quiet and you're still. What does he want to say to you, and what does he want you to know? And I kind of sped up a little bit, but if there was a place that you felt like you were safe, where would he want to meet you? Would he meet you at a Starbucks over a cup of coffee? Would he meet you at McDonald's over some French fries? Would he meet you in your office, in your bedroom? Where would be a place that God would say, I want to meet you here? And what would he say to you? And I feel like those moments really allow us to receive something other than the chaos that's going on in our minds.
Absolutely. I always love talking to you, Jazzmine. I thank you for the wisdom that you shared, and I also thank you for the vulnerability. You make a difference every day, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rollins.
As Jazzmine shared her area of brokenness, I thought it was interesting that her spiritual brokenness created a wall between her and people she was once close to, and it caused her to beat herself up in regard to her own spirituality. What's most powerful is that brokenness, though, has connected her to a whole new group of people who she can help heal as she heals. If you're interested in walking through this activity yourself, please follow the directions at the end of this video. I encourage you and congratulate you on working on your own success. Take care.